pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bearable Bull here. And I got this aggressively average content for you today. As here, we have the World Economic Forum taking place in Davos, Switzerland in 2023. The World Economic Forum has become one of the leading organizations for where the lizard people, also known as the Illuminati, gather around once a year to discuss what they want to do to the rest of the 99.9% of the population. Multi-billionaires, high net worth individuals, politicians, and heads of corporations all gather to try and enslave all of you under the guise of protecting your rights, the environment, and numerous other altruistic things. All this is a front for tyranny and oppression. And if you don't know that by now, you're just not getting it. Paying attention to the World Economic Forum over the past couple years would have put you ahead, intellectually and financially, of 99% of the population. If you don't believe me, it's still true. Crypto projects like Solana, Cardano, Algorand, CeeLo, XRP, Stellar, and others have been mentioned by the World Economic Forum, and since then most of those cryptos have had absolutely meteoric moonshots. All that shows me is the level of power they have. And what it should tell all of you is that you need to be paying extremely close attention to what they're promoting. Now, not only that, but Brad Garlinghouse is representing Ripple at the World Economic Forum and also rubbing shoulders with some of the highest level bankers, elites, and billionaires. There's no coincidences in the world, my friend. Brad definitely is in the big boy club, and Ripple is deeply ingrained into their agenda. Now, before I continue, I need to play you this clip of what's leading the agenda at the World Economic Forum this year for 2023.
The world's elite will descend on Davos for the World Economic Forum's first winter meeting since 2020. The themes on the official agenda are a bit of a mouthful, so let's break it down. Here are the top 3 things that'll dominate this year's agenda. Number 1, it's all about inflation. The post-COVID recovery crashed headfirst into surging CPI in 2022. Supply chains stretched to breaking point and prices soared, putting pressure on consumers. The Fed and central banks around the world responded with aggressive rate hikes, taking the possibility of a recession in their stride. But were they behind the curve? Number 2, a shifting geopolitical landscape. Russia's invasion of Ukraine forced many nations to choose sides and shore up energy supplies. Russia was absent from the forum's summer gathering in May and won't be there this year either. China-US relations also hit a new low over Taiwan and human rights. China is looking to come back bigger than ever at its first gathering since the pandemic, but will they receive a warm welcome? Number 3, crypto and regulation. A late addition to our top 3 thanks to the implosion of Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX empire in November. His arrest and extradition to the US has given regulators more ammunition in their drive to rein in the crypto industry. So are we already past peak crypto? Those themes aside, the big question may be more about the event itself. With criticism in recent years about its relevance, can this year's Davos produce anything more than talk?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you heard what the main focus is going to be at Davos. Inflation. Number 1. Inflation has been running wild, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell and other countries around the world have been non-stop talking about inflation. From countries like Turkey and Argentina that are facing over 80% inflation, down to the United States, which is currently around 6 to 7% inflation. The entire world is suffering. Money printing, the money supply, has destroyed wealth and increased commodity prices across the globe. This is something you cannot ignore. And something else you can't ignore is that at the end of the day, inflation and the devaluation of currencies will lead to the eventual rise of asset prices like real estate, like precious metals, like digital assets. This is why you need to place your money in sound, hard assets, because at the end of the day, all these fiat currencies are going to zero. We're approaching the end of the Ponzi scheme fiat currency system and heading towards the global currency reset. Here on the screen, I have a quote from Crypto Chase stating, "I've been trading for 6+ years. I've caught and missed many large moves. No single trade changed my life. The collective result of all my trades changed my life." Don't let crypto Twitter mess with your head. One move doesn't mean anything to a career, and I promise you it's no big deal. Just focus on what's next. I bring this before all of you to say and remind you that 2022 was a horrendous year, specifically for my community, because I was operating under the hypothesis that an altcoin season would come. The altcoin season never came, but now we're on the precipice of potentially seeing one. The reason that happened in 2022 is because of the strength of the US dollar and the DXY going parabolic. That was not expected. But despite that fact, that does not make a career. And actually, I believe because of that mistake, I am better positioned now to 1, educate all of you, and 2, to secure my generational wealth in anticipation of when this altcoin season finally does arrive. We've had to wait and weather the storm of a collapsing crypto market, Terra Luna, FTX, Celsius, and others. But like they said was the third point at Davos they're focusing on this year, crypto regulations are coming, both in the United States and global. This is very important because these regulations are going to allow for the trillions of dollars in capital to finally flood the market. Institutions have been standing idly by, waiting patiently to be able to attack and buy at rock bottom prices. And you tell me if these prices we've seen this year have been rock bottom or not. I personally think it has been. And that's why, despite any FUD you hear in the news, despite Jim Cramer telling you you're an idiot for buying crypto, this is the best time to get in. And it'll probably be your last chance to see these rock bottom crypto values. It is a blessing to see pre-regulation crypto prices. And if you don't get in, you will be cut off from the generational wealth opportunities. You don't believe it, it's still true. And don't get dissuaded by any fear, uncertainty, or doubt. Now, what do I mean by fear, uncertainty, and doubt? Right here we have Charles Gasparino from Fox Business, formerly a very favored member of the XRP community, now has gone to going full-blown shit poster about the XRP community. He states the absurdity of the XRP army hatred for all things and people associated with Ethereum can be found in the fact that every person I know associated with Ether wants Ripple to prevail over the SEC because what it will mean for crypto regulations and probably the ETH coin. You see, the issue, Charles, is that actually it's the other way around. Ethereum absolutely hates XRP. And by that I mean Vitalik Buterin has stated XRP is completely centralized. Just 2 months ago, Vitalik was talking shit about XRP. Joe Lubin has been very vocal and has always talked down Ripple and XRP. Mike Novogratz has talked shit about XRP Army members as well, calling them far right-wing conspiracy theorists, in order to try and discredit and dismiss us, despite the fact that we have quotes from videos, facts, and documents, evidence to back up our statements. We get dismissed as conspiracy theorists. But you see, the thing is, us conspiracy theorists, we've been right about everything for the past 3 years. I look at it as a badge of honor. And every single one of you should look at it that way as well. We'll all be here every single day providing facts, documents, and we'll eventually get rich from this digital asset, while everyone else continues to regurgitate their self-righteous XRP-hated thought vomit in every single Bitcoin maxi echo chamber they've ever been a part of. Not only did we have to deal with the unjust lawsuit against Ripple by Jay Clayton on his last day in office, not only have we found evidence that the Bill Hinman ETH free pass was illegal and that the SEC had conflicts of interest in unjustly attacking Ripple, not only are we being dismissed by Bitcoin maxis as idiotic, but now we're seeing the mainstream begin to call us conspiracy theorists, and the anti-XRP propaganda is in full force. We are the strongest community of people on the planet. And like the Bank of International Settlement stated, we're also the smartest crypto community on the planet. Geniuses look like idiots in an insane society. And you better believe the world's gone crazy. Now guys, to cap off this video for today, I'm going to play you a clip from the Patrick Bet-David podcast at Valuetainment, talking about the World Economic Forum, their agenda, and exactly what they want to play out, and the absurdity of the regulation they want to pass. The reason being is because the more educated you are on it, the easier it will be for you to prepare and make generational wealth. Stay educated and you stay ahead. And that's what we're doing on this channel every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Bearable Bull here. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. Now I'll be back tomorrow with another video.
Watch this. Honestly, you think this is from a movie? Like, did they literally hire this guy? And it's like, no, this is not a movie. This is how they market. So if some of you guys were afraid about COVID, look how he injects the fear of cyber attack and other things in his method of marketing. So press play.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
How is he convincing people like a Joe Biden to say, let me announce my candidacy campaign to be Build Back Better, which he's the Build Back Better guy. So why are people buying into this guy? Why does he have so much influence over people?
So the answer comes down to money, actually. So it comes down to money.
But he doesn't have money. He
doesn't have money. No. It's not even this man. I mean, I gotta tell you something. I was asked by the Wall Street Journal to review a book that he wrote, in like early 2020 or 2021,
right,
a couple years ago. And through reading that book, I get the sense that he's just a sincere individual who has had this passion for 50 years, and in his own heart is just one man who has his views. They're views that I deeply disagree with. But he happens to have exercised influence because everyone else with money, 360 degrees surrounding him, had a use for that. Okay? Larry Fink is on the board of the World Economic Forum of Davos. Klaus Schwab doesn't have money, or not in a seriously large-scale way. Larry Fink controls 8 to 10 trillion dollars under the purview of one man. That's probably the largest.
He was. Larry being who you're talking about, BlackRock, Larry Payne.
Yeah. I mean, that is probably the largest aggregation of capital under one man's authority.
No question.
In human history, more than the Dutch East India Company, okay? And he's on the board of the World Economic Forum of Davos. So what does this accomplish? It is a front. That is what this is. This is a front. And you know what? These things always come in three-letter acronyms, right? ESG, DEI, SRI, socially responsible investing, CSR. My favorite three-letter acronym is the CCP. You look at Klaus Schwab, he elevates the CCP. He talks about the Chinese model of dealing with COVID-19, not in a way not to do it, but in the way to do it.
Right.
So here's the way this game works, okay? The BlackRocks of the world apply constraints to the West. Emissions caps, what kinds of energy you can and cannot use, what kinds of diversity you must have. They apply that to the West without applying those same constraints in places like China. I'll give you a very specific example, okay? They're pressuring companies like Exxon to adopt Scope 3 emissions caps. That causes companies like Exxon to drop oil projects. Now, a couple years ago, there's an oil project in the Sichuan province of China. Chevron drops it. You might wonder, hey, maybe this is part of the fight against global climate change. Maybe that project isn't proceeding. You'd be wrong. That same project is proceeding just under new ownership. Who's the new ownership? It is PetroChina. Now you take a look at who's one of the larger shareholders of PetroChina. It is none other than BlackRock, the same party who's pressuring firms like Exxon and Chevron.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing here is that take it from the left hand and give it to the right. That's last time I checked, we're supposed to be fighting global climate change.
I'm just seeing a three-card Monty going on. Follow the money. It's
and
like
then the
one
World
way or
Economic
another.
Forum is this front that gives this, that sort of creates this veneer of legitimacy. When in fact, because it's a nonprofit global allegiance and organization conceived by this elderly Swiss gentleman, Klaus Schwab, when in fact it is just a vehicle for advancing an agenda that impedes the objectives of the West without laying a finger on China or the Chinese economy. And so the CCP is the most relevant three-letter acronym lurking by disease. I'll give you another little mystery here. Why is it part of the global ESG agenda to be hostile towards nuclear energy? So the first paradox is, why do they shift production to China and they're okay with it? Oh, and by the way, for any climate activists listening to this, I mean, just to give you a fact to think about tonight when you go to bed, methane leakage, a unit of methane is 80 times worse for global warming than carbon dioxide. Okay, people talk about carbon emissions. Well, if you don't actually have a database debate, you can't just talk about carbon. You have to talk about the difference between carbon dioxide, methane, and other forms of carbon. Turns out methane leakage is 80 times worse for global warming than carbon dioxide. Guess where methane leakage is worse? In places like Russia and China. So when you shift production from the U.S. to other parts of the world, it's not just that it's net neutral with woke washing. It's worse than that, because you're actually contributing to more methane leakage into the atmosphere than you were even in the U.S. You've done even more harm on your own terms. Even if you subscribe to this crazy religious zealotry, even if you subscribe to that, you have failed on your own terms. So that's the first mystery. Now I'll give you a second mystery, and then you see the conclusion. The second mystery is, why are they hostile to nuclear energy? Because you would think if you were opposed to all this carbon emission stuff, you would be embracing the greatest form of carbon-free, large-scale, reliable energy production known to mankind, that is nuclear energy. And yet, ESG funds, like Vanguard's ESG fund, systematically, by rule, exclude nuclear energy. Now scratch your head for a second and ask what's going on there. The answer is this whole agenda, the anti-nuclear disposition included, is really not about climate change at all. It is about making the West apologize for its sins of the past to achieve a paradigm of global equity. The problem with nuclear energy is not that it is not good enough. It is that it is too good at solving the supposed energy crisis or clean energy crisis, which means you lose the E, the environmental prong as ESG, as a Trojan horse for the S, the social agenda. And that's really what's going on here, is the whole climatism and the World Economic Forum. Each of these is just a front. It's a Trojan horse. It's a vehicle for advancing an equity-driven agenda that the citizenry of most democracies in the West, including the United States, would have never tolerated if you didn't disguise it in the religious veneer of COVIDism or climatism or whatever other secular religion ends up being the vehicle for advancing that. That is what's going on here.